Okay, just again, Sharmada, so there are few people to join now. So for them as well, hi everyone. Sharmada is my nutritionist, and I have been working with her for almost a year now, and I have seen lots of changes, both on a personal and on a sports level. So I requested Sharmada to take this session for all of us, and I believe it will be helpful. I hand it over to Sharmada now to take it ahead. So Sharmada, basically on a nutrition level, the definition differs for every people. For a general guy, nutrition could be just weight gain, weight loss, but for an athlete, it could be much more. So here we
Yeah.
have a mix of both, the sports people and generic people as well. So what I would like, at least give, first of all, people would like to know you more, and then at least what nutrition is in terms of, what you think nutrition is or should be.
Okay. See, it depends again, like you said, on a very personal, like it's very individual, nutrition itself. Like you can't determine that X is good and Y is bad on a very general basis.
Sorry, Sharmada, just a minute.
Yeah, we good?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Okay, so like how you see most of the internet fads and most of the internet trends, they completely like sort of make nutrition into black and white, right? So something is good, this is bad. So you can't generalize that for everyone, because if you look at it from a very like practical perspective, let's say someone's allergic to mushrooms, okay? So technically mushrooms are bad for that person. But since mushrooms are a healthy food or like a vegetable or a fruit, we assume it's good, correct? So when you look at it from a very individual perspective, what works for you may not work for someone else on this group, right? So how I've sort of tailored the plan for you and sort of like based around your workouts, your schedule, your intensity, and your preferences, it wouldn't be the same if anyone else approached me. It would be completely different, right from the quantities till like their workout. I'm sure everything, all of you have different intensities, different body weights, different goals, like you said. Some people may be here for just lifestyle. Some people are here solely for performance. I want my next PB. I want it, I'm training for a particular race. So it entirely depends on that and several other factors. It's not just food. Nutrition is also like your sleep, your stress levels, your lifestyle. What are the other habits do you have apart from just your food, right? So
Yeah.
all of those also influence your food intake the next day. So I think it's a lot of factors that affect your food intake, not just what you eat. So I think that's also something most people tend to forget.
So this won't be typical question, and I won't be interviewing you as such because I believe people would have their own set of questions.
Sure.
I have some question as well, but I would like people to ask you before I ask you the question. Uh, would you like to share something more about nutrition, or you'd want to ask the
Excellent.
questions later?
I mean, I think we can start with the questions, and maybe as they speak, I can elaborate on certain concepts or topics that they find difficult to
Okay,
understand.
that should be good. So Aditya, you had the question. If you can, you can unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have one question. See, like for a normal person, or suppose if I'm off season, like I'm not training for a month or two, so should I take protein supplements during that time also?
Yeah. Irrespective of whether you're training or whether you're not training, it doesn't really matter. Look at a protein supplement as a convenient protein source for you, right? You're looking at it as something special. A protein supplement is there just so that you get your protein easier into your diet, right? So, or it's just convenient for you. Let's say you're finishing your workout early in the morning, and let's say you have to rush for office, right? At that minute you may not have time to cook eggs, you may not have time to cook something, so the one thing you do is mix your protein powder in milk or water and then you have it, right? So when you can't meet your protein requirements through the day, when you can't say, let's say you don't have time to cook a meal and you don't have time to add protein to a meal, that's when a protein supplement comes handy. So it's more like a protein source, just convenient for you at that point of time. So it doesn't matter whether you take it on a rest day or a not rest day. It's essential irrespective, as long as you're meeting your protein requirements.
Okay. So, Manoranjan, you can continue now. Uh,
No, that's fine. It's an open forum, so anybody who has a question, you can just unmute yourself and ask the question to Sharmada.
So one question for me, Manu. Hi, Shamada.
Hi.
Is protein better had with water or milk?
Anything. To be honest, it depends on how you like the taste of the protein, because each protein brand also differs, right? Some of them taste very synthetic, some of them taste really yummy with water, but I think most people prefer it with milk, or when you have it like blended with a fruit or something like that, because it masks that, that synthetic taste that comes. So there's no hard and fast rule that it should be had with water or milk.
Sampada, Ravindra here.
Sharmada.
Sorry, Sharmada. Hi, Ravindra here. So I tried to have a protein powder. I bought it as it is. The brand is there from Amazon. It's a pure protein, and I tried one day and I got stomach upset and it's like lose motions. So I stopped it.
Right. Is it whey protein or is it like a vegan protein?
Whey protein, I guess.
Okay, so when you're trying something new, right, for the first time, don't go all out and have one full scoop. Always try taking half a scoop or little bit first, see how your stomach reacts to it. Because with whey protein, it's a very concentrated protein source. It's basically from milk, right? Whey is found in milk, and you sort of dehydrate that protein and put it in a packet and they sell it. Now the issue is it's very, very concentrated, and it does take like a bit of work for your stomach to digest it. So always, irrespective of whether it's protein or any other supplement, have little bit first. See how your body reacts to it. Start with half a scoop, then move to one scoop gradually. So once your stomach is okay with it, then it's fine. You'll be okay.
Sharmada, since we're already on the whey since we're already on this whey protein topic, there are different types of whey, we get in the market. One, they say pure whey, isolate whey, whey with BCCA. So what do you think? I have been taking whey isolate. So what are the different types of whey? And since we're already on this topic, there is another, a big topic going on, the game changers, the plant-based protein.
Okay, so
some light on that.
Yeah. So I'm going to try and share my screen here. Is that possible with this meeting?
I think it should be just a minute.
One.
Do you see share content option?
Yeah, it says host is disabled, participant screen share.
Yeah, you should be able to.
Let me try. No, it says you've disabled the screen sharing option.
You will have to add it in the options, Manu. You will have to allow participants.
Can you try now? Yeah, just checking it. Can you try now, Sharmila?
Yeah, awesome. Just a second. Okay. Is that visible? Is this visible for you, all of you?
It's coming up. Yes.
Okay, hold on. So, okay. I'm not sure if that's clear for everyone, but basically, those are the three different types of whey that you find in any like website or any brand that you look at, all right? So when you look at the first one, that's whey isolate. And usually when we say whey isolate, whey is from milk, right? And everyone knows that the milk protein there is actually lactose, all right? Yeah. So what happens in whey isolate is most of the lactose is completely removed from the whey protein, right? And the fat also is removed. So what happens is the protein content is visibly higher there. Okay. Right? So for those who have lactose intolerance or those who have a discomfort from milk can try whey isolate. And whey isolate is usually more expensive also compared to whey concentrate. Correct. Right? So in whey isolate, the carbs will also be a little lesser compared to whey concentrate. So most people will think it'll be maybe 1 or 2 grams max, 2-3 grams, nothing more than that. But most people will think, okay, carbs are lesser, so let me have that. Right? Whey concentrate, the second one is it has your lactose and fat in it. So which means the protein may be like 2 or 3 grams lesser compared to, and the carbs will be a bit more. That's it. There's no big difference between isolate and concentrate. Concentrate again is more affordable compared to isolate. That's it. So if you don't have any intolerance issues, if you're okay with consuming, lactose in milk, you can go for concentrate itself. There's nothing wrong in that. The last one is what most people think they should be eating. It's the most expensive. It's called whey hydrolysate, meaning the whey protein that you get is already digested. So it's broken down further and it's sold. So it's used mainly in a medical setting, right? When you're feeding patients through a tube and all of that, they need to, it'll get absorbed more faster.
Yeah.
So most people think, okay, if I have this, it'll absorb faster into my body. It's very, very, very expensive. It's almost 2 to 3 times the price of the original, like other 2 days. That is usually not needed at all. You don't need to consume that. So ideally, it's between the first and second based on your personal preference.
Okay, understand. Thank you.
Sharmada, I have a question on this since we are on the topic of protein supplements. Is it true that in the long run they will harm your kidneys or cause any issues in the long run?
No, not at all, unless you are genetically, there's a history of kidney issues in the family, or like you already have a pre-existing kidney issue, then we'd recommend not to take too much of protein. But if at the moment you're very functional, if you're completely healthy, then there's no reason for you not to consume it. But what ideally, like most people say, is don't depend on it fully. It's a supplement, meaning it should be supplementing your diet. What most people do is, okay, I'm taking a supplement, so every meal I'll just substitute whey instead of, paneer or chicken or eggs or whatever it is. So ideally use it for the meal where you feel like you don't get any protein at all, which is mostly our Indian breakfast. I think that's where most of us struggle to get like protein.
What about plant proteins? Everybody has been, seeing the game changers recently, and that's the new fad on the plant protein. So what's your view on?
There's nothing superior with plant protein and whey protein. All right. It's just that with plant protein, again, for those who are voluntarily choosing to not consume whey, or for some people, they get allergic reactions with whey. They get acne. They have like discomfort in general when you consume whey itself, maybe because of the milk products, right? Because it's milk based. So pea protein and brown rice and all of those proteins vegan protein sources are helpful for those who choose not to consume whey. So there's nothing superior to it than whey. It tastes very, very bad. Pea protein, if somebody's had it here, it's very, very bitter to taste. So besides that, there's nothing superior because in plants itself, I think only pea, brown rice, and soy are the ones that they make protein powder out of. So there's nothing exceptionally different. It's just, again, another protein supplement, ideally for vegans and, those who choose not to consume it.
Understand. Okay, thank you. Gagan, you had some, if you are on the call, you had some questions on this, right, Gagan, if you are on the call.
I have a query, if I can.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what is the true test of quality? I have seen that mine has a mention of protein digestibility and amino acid score. So is it the real, test of quality? The score mentioned is 1. So can you throw some light on it?
See, in terms of quality, if you're looking at, I'm talking about brand-wise. Are you talking about like brand-wise, which is better or?
No. I mean the true test, because I have heard that, okay, not everyone mentions the PDCAAS score on their product. So that means, somewhere either they don't value it or they know that the score is not 1. No, score of not being 1 means the body is not able to absorb the 100% of it. That's what I'm told. So I'm just trying to understand that, okay, if the score is 1, does it mean that it is the best quality or otherwise? I'm not referring to any brand here.
Okay, so when you look at the amino acid score itself, right, the reason why we look at the amino acid profile is because I'm talking about purely from a muscle building perspective, is that there's one amino acid called leucine that's very, very important for your muscle protein synthesis. All right. So ideally, I would look at, most brands won't mention it because there are a lot of, and it's not very regulated in India as well, right? When you look at the labeling and the difference between Indian labeling versus, let's say, somewhere else, it's not very tightly regulated, right? So that's why I said when you look at a particular brand, right? So that's when you try to do a quality test in terms of, okay, if I buy this product from this brand, am I assured that the quality of protein in that will be fine? Because when you look at, nobody consistently puts up amino acid scores on their product packaging. If one brand does it, the other brand won't. But that doesn't mean the other brand is sketchy or it doesn't, it may not be absorbed properly.
Yeah. Okay.
So it depends on the regulation also. Like I said, there's no set format for a person to put things on a label. The second thing would be, if you want to purely look at the quality of a particular protein, I would say whey is absorbed much faster and more easily digested compared to soy and your other milk protein called casein. Okay?
Oh.
So it's whey, casein, and then soy in terms of how fast and how efficiently it stimulates your muscles. So again, it's not like soy is not good for you. It's very, very good for you. It's just that it's absorbed less faster than your other supplements, right? So in terms of when you buy a protein powder itself, it's very unsafe to pick up any brand that's on the internet, because everybody is creating whey protein supplements now, because it's the most bought, most sought after supplement as of now. If even now Apollo has come up with whey, Himalaya has come out with whey. So it's different Indian companies are also doing it, but you don't know about their actual quality, which is why it's better to always look at websites. So I can like send a link to a website which batch tests protein powders, right? So they are imported, they are not from India, but it's safer in terms of, okay, I know for a fact that each batch of this is tested for impurities and contaminants. So I know it's safe for me to consume from a health perspective.
Gaurav, you have a long list.
Hi. Ajay, Gaurav. Okay.
And anybody can go ahead. That's fine. Go ahead.
I had one question. Yeah. So about nuts, I had queries that, how much is ideal quantity to have in a day? Sometimes what happens, we are snacking and then we take a handful and just, is it good, or is it like, what is your take on the dry fruits and nuts?
I think that's a good, I think nuts are a really, really good source of fat for you. I think those are the kinds of fats that we should be eating more of, not the cooking oil, not the, the fried food that we eat. Nuts and seeds are very, very, very good sources of fats for you. But they're also what we call energy dense, right? So because they contain a lot of fat, because they contain, they're a good storehouse of fat. If you realize, if you look at any food label, right? 1 gram of fat gives you 9 kilocalories of energy. Okay. So which means when you take a handful, when they say handful of nuts, my hand is small. But if you look at your hand versus, let's say, your husband's hand, his handful will be a lot bigger. So when you're taking a handful of almonds or a handful of walnuts, that's a lot of calories, right? So your how much would depend on just you. So you'll need to sort of figure out your calorie intake and your total fat intake for the day. But ideally, don't go by handful of nuts. That's a lot of nuts. You can have some. You can sprinkle some on your oats. So you can have 5-6 almonds now and then. That's okay. But the whole handful of nuts concept is very, very sketchy. That's what makes us overeat the good things more.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Yeah. And what about always eating Nutella with jam or Nutella with bread?
Sorry?
Every time, with 2 slices, I apply 100 grams of Nutella. How good is it?
I mean, it's not bad. I've always said, I don't say something. I know you're purposely asking me this also. But there's no single bad food. There's no single good food, right? So each food has a time and place. I wouldn't ask one of my clients to go to a birthday party and eat a salad. I would say, okay, yeah, have a slice of cake. It's a birthday party. That there's a place for it. But I wouldn't advise you to eat cake every day or have 100 grams of Nutella every day. We can definitely program it in. If you really want something chocolatey, yeah, sure, 1 tablespoon can be programmed every day. It's perfectly fine. But maybe along with other things. What we usually do is overeat. We eat from the jar. We don't put it on our bread.
Thank you.
So there's a difference to how much of the good and how much of the bad you eat.
Thank you very much. Gagan?
Hi. A lot of people focus on protein part only, and they neglect the other parts of the fiber, good fats. Can you explain the other other sources which are good and which are more important to as an athlete?
So I think if you're looking at purely from an endurance perspective, or for that matter, any athlete perspective, apart from protein, carbohydrates is something that I don't think we Indians need to worry about carbohydrates, because we get a lot of them from our diet. But we have too much of it and we don't eat it at the right time, right? So most of us eat nuts before a workout. For saying that, nuts give you energy. But ideally, I would do a carbohydrate source like a banana or a fruit pre-workout, and keep my nuts away and my fat away from my training, right? Away from my before and after. So I would do it at breakfast or lunch or whatever it is, if I'm training in the evening, right? So I think carbohydrates very, very, very important to understand that you need enough to fuel yourself for today and for tomorrow. So what you eat at dinner in the night may help you fuel in the morning before your workout. Let's say you wake up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. for a run or a long run. You can't eat a good pre-workout beforehand. So what you eat the night before is going to help you, like give you that initial push, right? Or if you start like a marathon, most of these marathons start at like 4 a.m. or you'll have to leave home at like some ungodly hour, right? So in that sense, you need to see how much carbohydrates you need. And the next thing would obviously be your fat. And again, with fat, we get, so there are two types of fat, right? Omega-3 and omega-6.
Omega, yes.
So omega-6 we get a lot in our diets from our cooking oil, from your fried food, all of that. You need omega-6, but we get too much of omega-6 and almost no omega-3.
Omega-3, yes, yes.
So omega-3 again, ideally most people need to supplement with omega-3 because there are two types of omega-3 itself, right? So EPA and DHA. If you see different like children's like Boost and Bonvita and all of that, they keep saying EPA and DHA for your brain health and for your overall functioning itself. What you find in your nuts and seeds, your walnuts, chia seeds, almonds, whatever it is a precursor to EPA and DHA called ALA. Okay, so all these nuts and seeds contain lots of ALA, which is converted in the body to EPA and DHA. All right. So now when I eat nuts and seeds, I don't know how much of this is converted to EPA and DHA. Right? You can't quantify that. Maybe my absorption is poor, right? Or maybe my quality of nuts and seeds is not great at where I've got it from. So that's why we say supplement with an omega-3 tablet. Those fish oil capsules. I think that works for most people because we don't eat salmon in India. So whoever eats fish, we don't get that. It's very expensive. It's not local either. Okay. So ideally, that would work in terms of fat as well.
So means you are going to the fish oil tablets?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's sold as omega-3 tablets. The normal cod liver oil tablets are a mixture. I think it's better if you get an omega-3 supplement itself. It will say omega-3 on the box.
On the label. Okay. Another question regarding this, the seeds parts, means like a lot of people tell means like you have a pumpkin seeds, chia seeds and all those things. What is the proper way to have? Is it means like you have to roast it, or you can have it raw, or you have to soak it over the night, and means like to have means the observation rate of those things?
It depends. So usually for chia seeds and sabja seeds are more or less the same. They're from the same family. So usually we soak it in water or we put it in like sharbats and stuff, right? So that's okay. That's perfectly fine because they become a bit bigger and more fibrous. But if you look at pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds, it's better to roast them just to give them a bit of flavor. Otherwise, they taste very bitter sometimes.
Bitter, yeah.
Right? So you roast them and maybe add a bit of salt and like your masalas or whatever. So we have it like our namkeen basically. And I don't think there's no rule to eat it a particular way. It's just pretty much again like most Western people, they don't even roast it. They put it on their oats just like that, or their salads or whatever it is without roasting. Okay. So as long as
mix it with other food.
Yeah, yeah, because it's not filling as a snack. I wouldn't say eat seeds as a snack because.
But it is an add-on.
Yeah, it's more like an add-on. It's good source of fat also.
Okay, great. Another question is regarding the fasting. There's a lot of people are getting good results with fasting, like 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours of a period of a snacking time, means like there. So what is your take, means if done in a proper way, means like maintaining the nutrition, what is your body is needed in those 8 hours and then fasting it for like 16 hours and all. What is your take about it? Is it good, means like overall the means like health for a long term purpose, or it is means like it is getting depleted, means like
So with intermittent fasting, right, again it boils down very, very strictly to what your goal is. Okay, if you're a runner or if you're a triathlete or a cyclist and you have early morning workouts and your intermittent fasting protocol says you shouldn't eat anything before your workout, after you come back from your cycling or running or whatever also, you shouldn't eat breakfast. You have to wait until 12 o'clock to eat, right? And you've done a very intense workout. You don't give your body enough fuel to endure that workout or, start that workout, and you don't give yourself any food to recover from that as well. let's say you cycle 30 kilometers and you don't have a post-workout meal. Okay, you're not giving your muscle protein to recover. You're not giving your you're not giving your body carbohydrates back, whatever you've used up during the run. You haven't given back water or whatever it is, right? Intermittent fasting only allows water, not sugar or glucose or anything in it. So you're not giving your body time to recover as well. So I personally think that's doing more damage than good, right? Because if you're looking at it from a performance point of view, you need to eat a lot to fuel your goal, right? But if you're looking at it from a purely no performance or a weight loss, perspective, it works for many people because it creates what we call a calorie deficit.
Calorie deficit.
Right, that's all it does. And but again, it depends on, do you like eating breakfast? Most people, they get acidity issues if they fast for that a long time. They get nauseous, they get dizzy. So for those people, I wouldn't recommend intermittent fasting. But some people, they don't like eating breakfast only. So they're like, no, I'll do lunch, snack, dinner. That's it. Over, they're good. So for them, intermittent fasting works. But if you look at like a metabolic perspective, like insulin sensitivity and like fat burning happens only because you're in a calorie deficit. It doesn't happen because of any magical properties of intermittent fasting, right?
Okay.
But in terms of insulin sensitivity, may help a little bit, but we don't know for sure yet. So I think it's better to eat all meals and like enjoy your food rather than skipping meals and putting yourself through, periods of fasting.
Starvation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
Ranjita. Ranjita, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Sharmada. It's so nice that you are having a session for us. Okay, I have a question. Like we have been hearing that we should often have different types of oil in our diet. Okay, we should keep changing our oil. Then we also know that there are different types of amino acids which are essential, and we should always have different source of protein. So don't you think that if we have one source of supplement, okay, protein supplement, it would harm our body, or it might make our body deficient in one of the protein source?
So when you're talking about, that's why I said you shouldn't entirely rely on a protein supplement for all your meals. All right. So if I'm using, let's say, whey protein at breakfast, I'm going to try and make that more nutritious. I'm going to have maybe our normal breakfast, right? Poha and like a lot of veggies in my poha. So that makes it a complete meal for you at that point. And then lunch, I'm going to make sure that I don't repeat that whey protein. I'm going to have maybe paneer or chicken or eggs or whatever it is. So the more you vary your protein source through the day, that's fine. You're getting all your amino acids, all your other nutrients. Whey protein, besides having your amino acids, it's more of a macronutrient, right? When you look at the other micronutrients, you'll get that mainly from your fruits, vegetables, and whole foods. Your rice, your oats, your sabzi, whatever it is, fruits. So that's why we say, apart from these main sources, have a lot of fruits and vegetables. So that's where you get more of your smaller nutrients from as well, right? And that's something we all neglect also very heavily in our diets these days. And in terms of oil also, again, the reason why we say don't sort of like stick to one particular oil is for the same reason. It's just to make sure that you get a lot of variety, because different oils also have different micronutrients in them. Very, very minute, very, very little bit, but still, it gives you that additional boost. Exactly.
Okay, Sharmada, one more thing. If you can tell me, since there was a lot of discussion about protein, there is in the market, when you go to select, when you actually become very conscious that, yes, I want to, start doing my physical activity, okay, say running or say gymming, and I want to take, some protein supplement. So when I go to the market, I get two kind of things. One is pre-workout and one is post-workout. So what is the difference? Is it the concentration of protein or what?
Pre-workout, if you see a pre-workout supplement in the market, it's actually not a protein supplement. It contains caffeine primarily and a lot of carbs. So carbs and caffeine, I think, and green tea, if I'm not wrong, and some other small like substances will be there, but mainly caffeine. All right. So a pre-workout, again, caffeine is a stimulant for you, right? So instead of pure caffeine usually, like, it depends on how you tolerate it. I wouldn't recommend a pre-workout unless you're okay, completely okay, and your stomach is okay with having that much caffeine. It's pure caffeine, right? Not coffee, caffeine. So people have like adverse reactions in terms of nausea, indigestion, and sometimes they get too energetic. You know, the pupils dilate and they won't be able to sleep for the whole day. So ideally, if you're looking at a pre-workout, you can do black coffee. I think that's the most straight up best form of like caffeine that you can take, strong coffee or like strong coffee with little milk, right? But that again depends on your caffeine tolerance. Some people are okay, like some people don't feel anything when they have coffee because they have so much coffee that they're sort of used to it. It become a habit. So that's when I say switch to black coffee. It's a bit stronger for you, right? And it also sort of works as a placebo for you. Oh, I've had coffee, I'll be a little more alert. Right? And a post-workout is your whey protein. That's usually when they have a mixture of carbs and protein for you in that, so your body sort of uses that for recovery.
Okay, thank you, Sharmada. Last question. Say I have hypothyroidism, okay, and I understand that my body's calcium absorption is very less. So whatever source I take, my body cannot absorb calcium. So, and even supplement is something which I'm not very regular, and it doesn't, I somehow don't wish to take external supplements. So are there any other sources of food, which is more rich in calcium, which
if you look
can
at
help,
Indian grain, I think if you look at Indian grains, besides milk and stuff, ragi has a lot of calcium. And I think that's something you can, and green leafy vegetables also. But another reason for your calcium absorption besides your hypothyroidism could be vitamin D also, right? So vitamin D and calcium work hand in hand. When one is less, the absorption will be affected, right? So most of us are vitamin D deficient. So if you don't have enough vitamin D, that will affect your calcium absorption in your body. So maybe get a test done once the lockdown and all of that.
No. I am advised to take weekly. Yes, Sharmada, I have got it tested, and weekly once I take that liquid supplement, vitamin D supplement, once a week.
So that should help. That should help once your levels like reach an optimal, like sort of like according to our blood test. I think that sort of should help your calcium also.
Okay. Anything else? Yeah. Thank you so much.
Nisha, just a minute. Since we're already on, the pre-workout stuff and the caffeine, I have not taken it since a long time. But when I used to box regularly, my boxing and Muay Thai, I used to take that, 2 rupees coffee sachet.
2 rupees, sorry?
The coffee,
yeah.
the small coffee. So I used to take that. Is that good or is that bad? No, I
That's
understand
just
what
like concentrated like coffee, right? Like the
direct the powder, the small shot. Just take it.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's so that acts like black coffee for you technically. So it gives you that caffeine kick in the beginning, and that's fine as long as your stomach is okay with it.
Okay.
A lot of people have like stomach issues when they have like pure black coffee, and I think because it's acidic and it's very strong, depending on the coffee that you use. So I think that's also very important to keep it.
Okay, thank you. Nisha, please go ahead.
Hi, Sharmada. Nisha here. I just want to know if we are vegetarians, then what is the natural source of proteins from eating what we get good source of protein?
I think if you look at a lean source of protein, I would go with tofu, soy-based, soybeans, soya chunks, soya, whatever those processed stuff that you get. You have tofu, you have paneer. There's milk, there's curd, there's Greek yogurt, there's I think lean protein for vegetarians is only this much. It's quite limited, and then which is why most vegetarians supplement with whey protein because it's easier because they don't eat with eggs, they don't eat meat, they don't eat like other sources. If you're doing your dals and all of that, dals are more of a carb source than it is a protein source, right? So your dals and your rajma, chickpeas, they have very, very good source of protein. Like let's say 100 grams of your tur dal will give you like 8 to 12 grams of protein, but it also comes with almost 25 to 30 grams of carbs, right? So you need to keep that in mind before you add, how we, let's say I'm from the south, right? So we have, or even you guys will have dal chawal, right? They would have brought us all up saying dal chawal is protein, dal chawal is protein. But it's a lot of carbs. It has some protein, which is why we add a cup of dal and like dahi or Greek yogurt to the meal to boost the protein content. That's it.
Again,
ideally,
Yeah, Nisha, sorry. Sharma, coming to this point, so you mentioned, adding Greek yogurt to the dal. So, is that a complete and incomplete protein? So, if you can just shed some light on that, please.
So most vegetarian sources of protein, and I'm talking about besides soy, besides pea protein, right? Pea protein is where you get a vegan protein also from. Besides those two, what happens is the rest of them are what we call as incomplete proteins. Your rice, your dals, your any other vegetarian protein source. Why we call them incomplete is also because our body, the amino acids, protein is broken down into amino acids in the body. There are two types, essential and non-essential, right? So essential amino acids, there are 9 of them, if I'm not wrong. And they are amino acids your body can't make. It has to come through the diet, right? The rest 20 plus are already your body can make it from whatever foods that you get. Now these 9, if all 9 are present in a particular food, then we call them a complete protein source. So your chicken, eggs, milk, dahi, everything has a complete, that's why we call them a lean protein. Your dals and stuff lack 1 or 2 of these amino acids. Of these 9, maybe there are 7 or 6 present, right? So we add usually a dahi or we add like another protein source to complete that profile. So there'll be 7 in this, there'll be 2 more in this, so you sort of make it 9 together, right? So which is why as a traditional perspective, we have dal and rice together because the 2 or 3 missing amino acids in dal is found in rice. So it's like a complete profile for you.
So that's why when I only eat salad, you ask me to add, a curd, bowl of curd to it.
Yeah.
Sprouts.
So if it's okay, you can add a bowl of curd. Like anyway, it's a good probiotic for us, and anyway, we all have a very good habit of adding dahi to our meals. So I think that's a good thing.
Okay, thank you. Nisha, please continue. Thank you, Sharma.
Sharma, one question. How many eggs ideally one should have for the protein content for a day?
Again, for a day, it depends on your height and weight, your activity, and all of that. But I would ideally say, again, stick to one meal with eggs and try to use other protein sources for other meals, because whole eggs also contain fat, right? And I'm not saying it's good or bad, but usually we have I've seen people eat 7, 8 eggs, but they're probably bigger built, right? So I usually provide a combination of eggs and egg whites. If you take 2 whole eggs and maybe 2 to 3 egg whites, that will give you about 20 to 24 grams of protein in one meal. So that's
with
very helpful. 2 whole eggs. So with the yolk, and then 3 just white.
Okay.
So when you have 5 full eggs, that becomes a lot of fat. So I'd ideally keep an eye on that one.
Gaurav, you have a long list. You can...
Yeah. So we are onto the topic. So I want you to, मेरे को जानना था what are LDL and HDL cholesterol?
Okay. So to put it very simply, LDL means what we call bad cholesterol, and HDL means the good cholesterol, right? You technically need both cholesterol in your body because each has its function. But LDL, what it does is it takes the fat, if I'm not wrong, to the liver, right? And HDL takes it, LDL takes it away from the liver, HDL takes it to the liver. So when it goes to the liver, it gets processed and it has other functions in the body. When it takes it away from the liver, so LDL is the one that takes it away, it will deposit in other parts of your body. So when people say you have atherosclerosis or when they have like a blockage, that's because those fat deposits have been accumulating for a while. A lot of LDL does that, all right? So ideally, to improve your HDL cholesterol is what most people need. When they say your high cholesterol or your cholesterol, is off, it means that they have more HDL and the total cholesterol in their body is more.
Okay, Gaurav, you have a long list, right?
Yeah. So I also want to ask about many of us are on marathoners. So I wanted to ask about carb loading. Is like there is a particular weekly plan for carb loading for optimal performance?
Carb loading, there was a weekly setup that was given by I think a long time back, but that has been said is not necessary. You don't have to carb load a week before unless you're doing something very, very intense. For a normal half marathon or let's say a full marathon, maybe 3-4 days before for a full marathon, and maybe 2 days before for a half marathon is more than enough to carb load. to sort of give your muscles that glycogen it needs. So we mainly carb load because you're going to use all the stored carbohydrates. You're giving your muscle enough carbohydrates, so during the run you don't get very tired, that you use up all the stored carbohydrates for fuel. So ideally there's no set, I wouldn't say a week unless you're doing a lot more distance. I think for a full marathon, I usually do 3-4 days before, and for a half marathon, maybe 2 days before is more than enough.
Well, what about for if somebody is doing a half Ironman or an Ironman?
It depends. I think it depends on, if it's an Ironman, it's the half Ironman, then yeah, it would require like 4-5 days in advance. Depending on, again, like how intense the trail is also. If it's in a very like hot place, you would also have to handle hydration, and they can't eat that much food. Carb loading is not easy in terms of, it's not just simply eating a lot more carbs, it's kind of also planned. Per gram by gram, how much more should I be having compared to my usual intake? And also hydration. So it's a lot of like other factors that come into play, but ideally, since most of us do, more commonly we do just half marathons and full marathons here within the country, I think 2-3 days before is more than enough.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Yeah, I have one question. I want to know about multivitamins. Like, is it necessary to have multivitamins after a certain age? And in market there are many multivitamins tablet. So is it good enough to take those?
I think you don't need to take a multivitamin. It's not compulsory because most multivitamins, I think you need to look at what vitamins they have, what form of vitamin they have, because different vitamins are absorbed by vitamins and minerals. It depends on the form. Let's say there are different types of magnesium, magnesium oxalate, magnesium citrate, and only 1 or 2 of these are absorbed better in your body. Okay, and how much is contained? Are you really taking more than you need? Or some of these tablets don't even contain the enough minimum requirement, right, to what you need for your body. So ideally, a multivitamin works only if you have a deficiency, right? Let's say you are deficient in zinc, okay, and your blood test says so, but I would at that point supplement with zinc itself and not a multivitamin, right? So unless you feel like you are in your diet, you're not eating enough fruits and vegetables, and simply you want to pop a multivitamin pill, okay. But if you're taking more than you require, anyway you'll excrete it. So there's no point in wasting your money in a multivitamin.
Akanksha, you can go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So I wanted to ask that which foods are better to increase our metabolic rate, because my metabolic rate is very low.
You mean your BMR, right?
Yes, basal metabolic rate.
To increase your BMR, it depends on a lot of things. Most women generally itself have a lower BMR compared to men. And if you're smaller, let's say on the shorter side, then you'll still have lower BMR. And depending on your muscle and your fat, right? That also depends. So I think you need to start working out. I think that sort of increases your appetite itself to start with. I think starting resistance training and your running both together, like a nice combination of the two, will be helpful first to sort of build more muscle. And when you do build muscle, it sort of increases your BMR as well, right? So it's sort of like a domino effect. So when you eat more again, that will be helpful. So to increase, there's not one thing that I can say that, hey, have this, it'll increase your BMR. I think it's a multifactorial like process to sort of like increase it.
Okay, can dancing help instead of running?
Everything will help. Any form of movement will help to start with. But I always advise people to lift a little bit of weights, even if you're endurance training, because it helps you preserve your muscle, right? I'm not talking from a muscle building perspective. I'm talking about from a health perspective. As we age, we tend to lose muscle. Anyway, that's a given process. You can't stop that, but you can delay it. You can delay your muscle degradation by sort of engaging in resistance training, having a good amount of protein in your diet. So I think it's helpful if everybody lifts once in a while as well.
Okay, thank you.
Shamada, so you mostly have been asking me to add wheat juice. What's the benefit of having a wheat juice and wheat juice versus wheat slices? What's the difference? You are on mute, Shamada.
Beetroot contains this one component called nitrate. I'm not sure if everyone's heard of it. But what this nitrate does is it actually dilates your blood vessels. Okay, it makes your blood vessels a bit wider, which means the blood can flow more easily with more oxygen. Your blood carries oxygen anyway. So it carries more oxygen to the working muscle, which means your muscle will work more efficiently, right? So ideally, beetroot is one of the richest sources of nitrate. So if you're an endurance athlete, I would always advise eating a lot more beetroot, your spinach varieties, dark green leafy vegetables a lot more often, because that sort of increases the nitrate content. If you look at elite athletes, they'll have nitrate juice itself, like beet shots, right? So if you look at them, it'll tell you how much nitrate is present in each shot that they have. But we don't need that as recreational athletes because it's not something that you need to be taking that much in unless you have all other parts of your diet and lifestyle sorted. I wouldn't recommend an elite athlete supplement per se. But how we can include it is by having beetroot and your green leafy vegetables.
So what is there any difference? I drink 200 ml of beetroot juice, or I eat a half slice of beet. Will that give me the same benefit?
It's very, which is why most elite athletes actually supplement with a solid dose of nitrate, because we don't know how much nitrate is there in the palak that we buy or the beetroot that we buy, because it depends on where it's grown, how it's harvested, and what it's all of, in fact, for any nutrient we have to just assume that okay, this is a good source of nitrate. Watermelon is a good source of this nutrient called citrulline. I need to have more of this. That's it. Because I can't quantify it, because it depends on where is it imported, is it from the south, or is it from the north, how the soil is. So we can't track down all of that. So for now, we just have to trust the fact that okay, I know this is rich in nitrate, so I will have this every day. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll ask a question which came from Akash to me, that how to deal with unintentional weight loss and what kind of fat is okay to eat.
How to?
So how do you deal with unintentional weight loss and what kind of fat is okay to eat?
Unintentional weight loss, again, like I said, usually happens when you eat less amount of food compared to what you're burning. Okay, so which means you're not eating enough if you're not intending to lose that weight, right? So ideally, you would have to look at, okay, how are my meals? Am I skipping breakfast and doing just lunch, snack, and dinner, right? Or am I unconsciously skipping dinner every other day? Like because I'm coming back late from work and stress, whatever. Some people just skip meals, right? So that would be a good place to start with, to see where you're losing that opportunity to eat more. Or some people just have a small appetite, okay? So see where you can build your appetite. Can I eat a little bit more in this meal to expand my stomach a bit, right? Your stomach's a muscle, you can train it. You can eat more, you can eat less based on how much you feel it at that moment of time. And how much of fat, again, it depends on how much each person requires. Okay, you as let's say if I have a client who's 70 kgs and works out 2 to 3 days a week versus a client who's 50 kgs and never works out, their fat intake would vary based on their body weight and activity levels, and it would be very different. So ideally, just remember at least 30 to 35% of your daily intake should be fat. And we anyway get most of it from the wrong sources of fat, which is why we're saying include more of nuts, seeds, peanut butter is good for you, almond butter, or just for that matter, our normal roasted, like, your peanuts and almonds and walnuts, whatever it is, try to get some of those into your diet.
Even ghee should work for good fats?
Ghee, so again, there's no, it's not a good fat, as in it's not classified as, along with your nuts and seeds, but it's still a very good source of fat because you're breaking down butter you're heating up the butter, right? So ghee is still a saturated fat. It's from an animal source, but ghee, your egg yolks and all are still fat that you need, some amount of fat that you need for your diet. But that's again something we get more of, right? We get ghee anyway, we get oil anyway, but the nuts and seeds we don't incorporate in a standard Indian diet. So that's what we need to focus on adding.
one more question. If you are running a full marathon, and what are the kind of something to eat in between the race to get that instant energy when you're drinking the water?
So you have to remember that when you're running a race, in between you'll need something what we call a simple carbohydrates. Okay, something that's very, very fastly absorbed. So which is why if you see the gels and stuff, they're either maltodextrin or like glucose or like simplest whatever your body absorbs. So your rice and all of that is broken down into this anyway by the body. So you're giving it the absorbable form, so it's in your bloodstream faster than than eating food, right? So ideally glucose works. Your energy gels work if you're doing like a longer distance running and your stomach is okay with consuming a gel. You can do energy drinks. They're perfectly fine. They have like your pure sugar with them. Or you can do a homemade drink and try it out with your sugar or jaggery, and you can add like little bit of salt and lemon just for flavor, and you can carry it with you. That's something like a homemade drink for you that you can do. Or like in stations they'll provide dates. Bananas are okay. So dates, bananas again, they're very, very sweet. They are digested faster into your body, and they don't make you feel heavy. So if you take like something like a protein bar in the middle, that will take a longer time for you to digest. But if you look at like easily digestible stuff, these are very helpful.
And what about the salt? Are the salt capsules important for while running a full marathon, not for any other race?
That depends on the weather also. Like if you're running a full marathon, let's say in Chennai, it's going to be extremely hot irrespective, right? Versus let's say you're going to a colder place, whereas it's not going to be hot, you'll definitely need you would need electrolytes, but you may not need a salt capsule. You can just do with an energy drink that anyway has electrolytes in it. So I think, and that depends on the person. Some people sweat a lot and they might need to supplement with a salt capsule versus someone who's okay with just consuming whatever electrolytes through fluid itself.
So if we need to carry salt caps, then we should have it directly with water which is available on the route. Yes, that
you can actually put the salt capsule beforehand itself in a bottle, ideally, and carry it with you, because it'll be a hassle when you take out a salt capsule, wait, put it into the on route, wait for it to sort of like dissolve and then drink it and then go. So ideally it's already put in a bottle, and you can keep sipping little bit along the way, along your track.
There is another question, Shamada. Is buttermilk better or curd, or both are the same?
Buttermilk or?
Curd.
Both are the same. You're anyway beating curd into buttermilk, right? So the thing is, buttermilk, again, you'll dilute it. There's no water to curd ratio, like that differs. It depends on how you make it. Like down south, we make it super watery. Whereas I know that lassis and stuff are more thicker, more creamier, and they have more fat also in it, right? So it depends on where you're from and what your purpose is. I would use it for fluids. Anyway, you need fluids through the day. So instead of reaching for juices, maybe buttermilk helps.
Thank you. Akanksha, you still have a question? Akanksha? Anybody has any question? I think we are almost, almost an hour now.
Yeah, I have one.
He has a question.
Yeah. So, having heard about, a lot of it and the backdrop of various questions, I would like to know what is the recommended intake of vegetables and fruits on a daily basis? Is it, one should have 2, 3, 4, 5 fruits and 4, 5 different colors of vegetables?
I would aim at least 2 fruits a day to start with, because we don't even get that. We eat maybe 1 fruit a day or something just because it's there, like half, a couple of slices of apple or whatever. I think that's helpful if you just take it as 2 fruits a day, just to start with. You can have more based on your intake. It's not harmful. But vegetables, again, in our meals, we don't get enough at all. If you look at, we eat a sabzi just because we make it at home. Just 1 spoon just for the heck of it, right? I think at least 2 cups of vegetables is quite helpful. And if you have more variety, the better. So ideally 2 cups of 2 different types, or maybe a nice big salad with 4, 5 different varieties is very helpful, because there's no set quantity per day, per meal, but the more you get, the more micronutrients you're getting anyway, right? And the more fiber you're getting. So it's all good for you at the end of the day.
Sharmada,
I have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How to differentiate between stress, emotional hunger, and actual hunger?
Okay, this is actually a very good question. I think we all do that. If you look at, let's say, actual hunger, right? Let's say you're talking about like physical hunger. There are signs and symptoms that your body gives before you're hungry. Some people's stomach will start grumbling, which means that's your actual sign of, hey, I need to eat right now, right? If you've just eaten your meal, if you've just eaten lunch and you feel like, okay, I feel a little bit hungry, you need to ask yourself that question. Why do I feel hungry right after eating lunch? We all have that craving, and after the afternoon, we want something sweet, right? So you need to talk to yourself for a little bit and be like, why am I hungry? I just ate food. So the chances are your lunch or your previous meal wasn't filling enough, which could be actual hunger. But if you realize that you eat very often after lunch, just for the heck of it, despite being full, that's what we call boredom eating, right? Or when we're watching Netflix and you've just eaten dinner, we always have to eat something, right? Or when you're watching a movie, it's a habit. When you go to a movie theater, you have to buy something. So at home also now, when you're watching Netflix, you have to eat something. It's become a habit. So that's when you sort of identify your triggers. Okay, this is when I'm eating the most. And I don't even think I'm hungry. Sometimes after eating, we realize, why did I eat that? Right? And stress eating, again, you can't particularly differentiate it. You need to identify your pattern. Stress eating, again, if you realize most people, let's say exams, work. At work, you'll end up eating so many samosas, so many of these, namkeen things when you're working, and you'll feel suddenly sick and nauseous. That's when you realize that you've stress eaten because you've eaten more than required, right? So it's sort of identifying what your thing is. There's no way I can say, hey, stress eating is when you eat like this. It means that you're using your emotions as sort of like a coping mechanism is food for your emotions, like your stress. So when I identify that, okay, I'm eating when I'm feeling anxious or I'm eating when I'm feeling sad, then someone can help you out with how do I deal.
So to add to it, sorry, because I personally experienced it, Gaurav, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sharmada. So stress eating could also mean, you are not paying attention to what you're eating, and it has happened to me multiple times. And I shared it with Sharmada. So I ate something, and then after some time I asked from him, Mom, why did you not give me this? And she's like, you already ate that. I did not even realize I ate something. So eating something, I ate my stomach was full, but I did not actually know what I ate. So that doesn't serve any purpose of having the meal.
I think it's because we don't eat mindfully, we don't listen to our bodies anymore. We eat at a particular time just because we have to eat then, which is why like sometimes I say breakfast, apart from children, that is children need like breakfast and all of that, but I'm talking about like fully functional adults. They don't like eating in the morning. They don't feel hungry in the morning and they can manage with lunch, a big snack and dinner, right? So that's why we call it individual mindful eating, all right? So when you listen to your hunger signals, okay, my stomach's grumbling right now, I need to eat. Or you stop eating when you're full. You don't push yourself beyond that. And it's a thing with Indian families also, right? Like if you're living with your parents, they're going to be like, no, there's just one more, please eat it. No, you need to eat more. I only know when you're full, you don't know. But that's actually not true. You would actually be very full. Most of the kids are like overfed by their parents. You need to listen to your body. Actually, children, to be honest, they are grown, they are inbuilt with mindful eating. We are the ones who change it by telling them, no, you should be eating more than you require, right? When they're full, they're full. When they're hungry, they'll cry. And that's when you know that they're hungry, right? But what we do as we grow is, no, you need to eat more. You need to eat more. They forget what that is, what fullness is, what hunger is. So whenever it's 1 o'clock, they'll come sit to eat. They'll overeat, and then they'll end up, eating more than required. So that's happening to all of us as well. We don't chew our food when we eat. We are always watching like TV or like watching something on the computer or on our phones, or we're shoveling food down because you have a meeting to go for. You're not sitting and chewing your food at all.
Yeah.
Right? So which is why it's quite helpful if you say no gadgets at the dining table, no phones. Just spend 10 minutes just with your food. Talk to your family or whatever, but don't look at a screen because it's quite distracting.
Thank you. Nisha, yes?
Hi, Sharmada. rice or chapati, which is better
Both
for
are
energy?
good. Both are good. No difference.
Okay.
It's just that if you've grown up eating a lot of wheat, that's perfectly fine. If you've grown up eating a lot of rice, then rice is good for you, because that's again very indigenous to India, right? Different parts eat different grains, right? The north is obviously more into wheat. The south is more into rice, because that's what we harvest here. That's what they harvest there. So there's no particular difference. It's just how much you eat. Again, like not what you eat. Wheat does have a little more fiber than rice, but you can always get more fiber from vegetables. So there's nothing wrong. There's no better.
Thank you.
Hey, Sharmada, Priya here.
Hi.
Sharmada, we have all wheat chapati, bread, and then multi-grain chapati concept. So, is it okay to have a multi-grain chapati, or is it okay to have one whole grain chapati?
It's okay to have anything, to be honest, because all grains are going to give you. See, the thing with multi-grain again is maybe it's a little bit more fiber. All right, like that's how we compare. Like let's say a maida, and most people say maida is bad for you, right? And versus comparing a maida to a whole wheat atta based chapati, right? Basically, the only thing is maida is the most refined form of wheat, and your whole wheat is like with the fiber in it. Right? So your maida has no nutrients. It's like empty. It's just tasty, that's all. But when you look at multigrain versus like your whole wheat, again, it's just maybe a little more fiber and more micronutrients for you. It's not like superior in terms of your macros or carbs. It's still a carb source.
Okay.
Hello? Yeah. Sharmada, one or two more questions. One is...
Hello.
6 meals, 3 meals. Where was the question? Okay, is it good to eat 6 meals, say small meals a day, or 3 big ones? And should we have?
Manu, I think Pallavi is trying to ask a question.
Hello.
Okay, Pallavi. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. Hi, Sharmada. Actually, I am not an active runner, but I just wanted to know the ideal amount of carbs, proteins, and fats to be consumed in a day.
I think that's very individual. Like I'll have to tell you for your intake, how much carbs, protein, and fat, because that again would depend on your activity, your size, your other factors like if you have any lifestyle conditions, diabetes, cholesterol, whatever it is. So there's no generalization that we can make for saying that okay, you know what, this much carbs everybody's supposed to have per day. So I think that's entirely dependent on you in terms of. So and the same thing for your meals also, right? Like your 3 big meals, 6 small meals a day. It depends on your calorie intake for the day, right? Some people, like I said, are okay with 3 meals a day. They're perfectly fine with breakfast, lunch, dinner. But some of us need to eat every 2 hours, right? Some of us get acidity if we don't eat, especially between lunch and dinner is the biggest gap, like about 6 hours or 7 hours of gap. That's when people get hungry in the evening. But some people are perfectly okay also. They're like, no, I'm fine. Like I'm okay with eating food. So your calorie intake is planned accordingly based on your preference. Nobody is going to stop you by saying, oh, you have to eat 6 small meals a day. Sometimes it becomes too much for some people.
And what is the ideal time of breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Because most of the people say that we should have dinner before 7 o'clock or before 6 o'clock, so that we will get some time for digestion before sleeping. So ideal time.
Usually again, like before sleeping, I would again suggest that you at least give an hour and a half to 2 hours gap before you start lying down, because it's not about digestion per se. You anyway feel uncomfortable sleeping on a full stomach. Physically also, you feel like everything is coming back up, right? So ideally give it an hour or two. There's no ideal time. Let's say somebody finishes their night shift or whatever at 10 p.m. and that's when they can come home and eat dinner. I can't say eat dinner at 7 p.m. Right? There's no ideal time. If you're at home and if you are you have nothing else to do after a certain time, then I would say eat dinner by 7, 7:30, 8, ideally 8:30 maybe, and then have sleep by like 10:30. But if someone finishes work and comes back home only at 8:45, then I'll say okay, eat dinner at 9, sleep by 11 o'clock.
Okay. Thank you.
Just received a question, Samara. Does it help to eat makhana? I am not sure makhana, and what should be the quantity that we can eat?
I think It's a very good snack. Again, like it's very light also on you. It's quite low in calories. But where we go wrong again is we roast it in a. I don't know if you guys roast it in like ghee or whether you roast it just like that. So it depends again on what you add to it. But ideally, one small cup works. That's also something you can overeat very easily because it's not filling. It's like popcorn. It's like an Indian popcorn basically. So it's something that you can just keep eating until you. It's.
I
So
roasted
it's
with ghee actually.
exactly. So how much ghee you add also matters a lot.
Okay. So means like, is it ideally to roast it with ghee or what? Means or
You
is
can roast in a bit of ghee, add a bit of spices. I know that we do that as Indians. We do that with like even like your rice murmura and all of that, right? But it's again like how much of ghee you're adding and how much of makhana you're having. I can't have an entire bag saying okay, it's healthy. My nutritionist said it's a good snack. It depends on portion control also. I will also say you can eat chocolate every day, but how much? Are you eating the whole bar or are you eating just one square and like satisfied with the sweetness?
Okay.
Does it help in the proteins or it's more of a carbohydrate?
Sorry?
Is it a more of a protein, makhana?
No, I wouldn't say it's a protein source. Your protein sources anyway are like quite a very short list in terms of pure protein content, right? Milk, dairy, Greek yogurt, meat, eggs. I would also say your lentils also have some protein in them. All of the nutrients are present in all of these foods but at varying proportions, which is why we classify them as carbohydrate rich, protein rich, and fat rich. Nuts also have protein in them, but they don't have enough. Fat is anyway more in nuts, so I would classify them as a fat source. But in a meal, when you have rice, when you have dal, when you have dahi, all of those add up anyway. Like from your rice, maybe 2-3 grams, from your dal, 8 grams, and from your curd, maybe like another 4-5 grams. It all adds up from your meal, but it's better to have one protein source in your meal anyway.
Nisha, you still have a question? Nisha?
No, Mano, thank you.
Okay. Atul sir, you just joined. You have any questions? We were just winding up.
Oh, sorry, I was stuck with some office work.
That's fine.
Better part of it.
I will share the recording link after this. So we had actually a very.
Maybe my only request then would be like if we can drop an email, would you be able to reply?
Yeah, of course.
Great.
Okay.
That's all, Manu, from me.
Okay, thank you. Anybody has any more questions?
So you can keep in touch with me through Instagram more than emails, and emails also. I respond to my emails, but I have a page on Instagram where I put up information, stuff that I find interesting or myths that most people seem to be following these days, and that's like free content for all. So if that would be helpful in terms of if you're looking at just learning more and like finding what's helpful for you, then I'll ask him to share like my username with you.
By tonight, be ready to see some more requests from our side.
It's a public profile, so go ahead and like it's like free for all, so go for it.
I think so if you can go ahead.
Yeah. Also on the the essential vitamins and minerals, just want to know like protein is something which our body needs every day, but it can't store and use it on the next day. It gets excreted.
Yeah.
Protein
doesn't get excreted per se. It's used for other body processes. So when people say, right, 20 grams of protein is what you can absorb at that given sitting, they mean for muscle synthesis. So for your muscle building. If you have 40 grams, it doesn't excrete that extra 10 grams. That extra 10 grams is used for other functions in your body. So we need to understand that besides muscle building, your hair is made of protein, your skin is collagen, which is a form of protein. Your hormones have a form of protein. So it will be used for something else. It won't be necessarily excreted from your body.
Okay. So also on the the essentials like vitamins and minerals, are they also required on a daily basis? Like if I say chromium, okay, have a broccoli every day, a head of it or half head of it. So just want to know, is it also something which is required every day, or we just can incorporate, say, just by mix and match and having salads every 2-3 days, once a while?
Mix and match vegetables every day. Like
Okay.
in the sense, have some sabzi every day with your food. Like at least 2, right? So what I usually say is, let's say at home they make only one. Have like carrots, cucumbers, tomatoes, and stuff handy. So you can just cut up a cucumber, add it to your meal. So that makes 2 vegetables for you, right? So small things. Even carrots and tomatoes, you can eat them raw, right? So things like that, just keep them handy. Or when you're making, like, let's say a gravy, right, a paneer gravy, maybe add some other vegetable to that, make it a matar paneer gravy, right? And then have another sabzi on the side. So try to optimize those kind of things, right? So down south we obviously make sambar and stuff, so add 2-3 more vegetables to that, so instead of adding just one. So if you have any gravy, so
More
if
the
you have
merrier.
exactly more the better. Or if you're doing a pulao, add like, that's where you can like sort of have like more control. You can add like 3-4 different vegetables into the pulao. Your raita can have like a different type. It doesn't have to be onions, it can be something else, right? So just try to be a bit innovative. Or like if you ever have like an uttapam or a dosa, you can add like onions on top of it. So it's just innovation at the end of the day. Your poha can have different veggies, so it doesn't have to be as a standalone sabzi. We can incorporate it any way we want to.
Sharmada, I think he was talking about fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, K, which doesn't need to be, I mean, the daily intake is not needed because it can remain in the body.
Ideally, you're getting it through your food anyway when you eat it. Like when you look at egg, if you eat whole eggs, anyway you're getting a vitamin D. If you eat mango, you're anyway getting a vitamin A. So there's no rule that you shouldn't be getting a particular vitamin or vitamin every day. You have a requirement and you should be meeting that requirement. That's all. So that's why we say eat the rainbow. Try to include as many colors as you can every day in your plate, right? So when you have like different colors, it means more macronutrients are coming in. That's it.
Okay, so is it the underlying basis why multivitamins are recommended if you are not having a lot of veggies every day?
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty much exactly why.
So
yeah.
Concentrated fruits and vegetables have just popping a pill is something which a lot of recommendations is happening.
Yeah. But like I said, multivitamins, again, the sketchy thing is you don't know if it meets your requirements. Sometimes it's too much. It could lead to a toxicity. So you need to consult like a doctor or a nutritionist to see if it's safe to take. Or it could be a form, let's say like for magnesium, usually we say take magnesium citrate. That's the best form it's absorbed in. But if your multivitamin has some other form of magnesium, it might not be absorbed in the body. You're just wasting money. It's just really expensive excrete. Like you'll be peeing out the excess anyway. So that's when you're like, okay, maybe I should be talking to someone if I really need to supplement.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Atul sir.
Okay. So what I wanted to know, there is this new school of thought wherein one Dikshit diet, which many people are following over here, quite a few of my colleagues as well, wherein he advises only like eat only twice a day, 2 meals in a day. It can be like the quantity can be anything then. And then the other school of thought which we hear and I have read also is like have small portions of meals and maybe have 4 times in a day. So is it like depending upon the individual or what is it like?
Very individual. So if I'm someone who can eat a lot, let's just say, like I was saying, each person has a set calorie intake, right? So from that calorie intake, if I eat more, I will gain weight. If I eat less, I lose weight. In those 2 meals, if I make sure that I eat enough calories to put me in a surplus, I will consistently eat that much and definitely gain weight. If those 2 meals are not home cooked and I have like, let's say, a full McDonald's meal with me, that's easily 1,000 calories right there in 1 meal for you, right? So it depends on, again, just saying 2 meals, if you eat, you'll lose weight, or like, it's more like a fad. You don't understand the science behind it either. And in fact, if you eat just 2 meals a day for a week, you become so cranky. I mean, you cannot try it as an experiment if you want to, but your mood is also affected. Your energy levels are affected. So it's also to realize that your nutrition is not just for weight, it's also health, right? So if my health is not okay, if my energy levels are not okay, how am I going to be able to do other things? If I'm not able to walk from my house to my car without like fainting or feeling a little bit nauseous, then my diet is not okay. So it has no set rule that 6 meals a day, 3 meals a day, nothing. It depends on the person only.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Anybody has any more questions? I think not. I think Sharmada, before we finish, it was a really wonderful session, and I'm sure people must have benefited a lot. But before we leave, I want you to give us a takeaway. A takeaway. What it could be anything, but something that we can take away from nutrition perspective.
I think what I'd like to say is nutrition is like everybody has an opinion. Everybody says things through because WhatsApp forwards are coming in. You read something on the internet, you don't know what's right and what's wrong. Because obviously you've gotten your doubts cleared right now, but until now it would have been like, okay, one website will say something, the other website will say something else. Right? So what's the source? Right? So like I always tell, it's okay, like even if you're consulting a nutritionist, ask them why they're giving you certain things, or like question them and try learning the right educate yourself. I think that's very important because I personally believe in transparency. Like if you ask me something, I will tell you like why I'm giving you a certain meal or why I'm giving you a certain workout or whatever it is, right? Out of pure curiosity, even you'd like to know why you're eating certain things. So I think the first thing is like ask people where they're getting their information from. Is it backed by science, or is it just something that they heard on the internet, or is it something that they've tried, works for them, so they're telling other people? So it's very anecdotal. What works for me may not work for you, right? So I think that's just something I want to like tell everybody wherever I see them. Information is available everywhere. Like always ask your doubts to a professional or get your doubts cleared before you try anything new. Like, even with diets, fat diets, there are so many people saying different things, right? That if you eat this, you'll lose weight. If you have this tea, you'll lose weight. And they're trying to push products on you. They're trying to push supplements on you and all of that. So ideally, look at food first and then like look at supplements, but always like get everything clarified before you try something.
Thank you.
All right.
So taking cue from cue from Mano's question, what I would like to ask is, we are like majority of us, in fact, each one of us is a runner. So what would be a basic nutrition mantra that each one of us should follow? Like I would say for vegetarians, non-vegetarians, like there are many options available. So if you are to address it from what would it be? Like in a line of...
As a set rule, I would obviously say have a balanced diet. Don't skimp on any nutrient. Not carbs, not protein, not fat. You need all three of them. All three of them have different functions in your body, right? So again, like I said, most people tend to skimp on the protein. Some people say fat is bad, so they do zero fat diets. So I think it's very important to understand that each of these are very important for you in different quantities. And too much of a good thing is also bad for you. Like too much of nuts will also put you in a calorie surplus. You will still gain weight. From a nutrition standpoint, yes, it's giving you nutrients, but if your goal is to lose fat, then you'll have to keep an eye on the good also. So there's no free will. Even if you eat cake, it's fine. You can eat one slice. But if you're eating one slice every day, then that's bad for you. So again, how much more than what is also quite important. So I think that's also like something most of us are unaware of.
Great. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody has any more questions, or we can call it a day then?
The Insta handle. Hello. Manu, if you can share the Insta handle, we would like to just be.
Yeah, definitely.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sharmada, I had one question. How do we know what exactly comprises of a balanced diet?
So a balanced diet without like the quantities, I'd say contains all three nutrients, your carbs, protein and fat, and your veggies and fruits also. All right. So through the day, you should be getting enough of all of these. You shouldn't be neglecting or restricting yourself from one of these diets. I think that's what I would say a balanced diet is, and eating even foods that you enjoy, right? Just because you eat healthy and you don't eat your favorite, like let's say sweet or chocolate, that's not balanced for me, because mentally you're restricting yourself also, right? Like our food is very diverse. So when you say I'm not going to eat sweets on Diwali, that's quite ridiculous. You can't not eat them. That's the day you're supposed to be eating something nice, right? So it's both mental and like physical satisfaction is what I would say a balanced diet is.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
That's really actually wonderful to hear, because we normally don't hear nutritionists say that, okay, you should be eating sweets and all. So it's a wonderful change actually.
You put it that it's Diwali and you can't or you want to eat sweets. So it is very heartening for us to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I'm someone who enjoys food, so I know how it is when you mentally restrict yourself. So it depends on how much. Am I eating am I eating 10 gulab jamuns in one sitting, or am I eating 2 and saying, okay, I'm satisfied now? So I think the willpower comes in there, where most of us let loose and we blame it on the food, not us, right? We'll say, no, the gulab jamun is making me fat, not me losing control over that. So I think it's, at the end of the day, if you're able to keep that in check, you can have whatever food you want to have.
Atul sir, I will say your own dialogue to you. Sab moh maya. Any more questions?
Okay, yeah, one last question, Sharmada. As a thyroid patient, I have a lot of water retention in my body, and it happens very often, the moment I skip even a day or two supplement, I can see water retention in my body. And since I have sinus, I can see my face swells up and things. And as you know, the calcium absorption is less, so there are joint pains and other things. So how can I, stop this water retention?
I'm not entirely well versed in too much of clinical nutrition questions. I want to be quite open with that, because my area of specialization is sports. But I think, if you do ask, I think ideally what I would say is not to skip your recommended supplements and tablets. I think that's one place to start with, and start to identify, is your water retention because of your hypothyroid condition, or it could be several things. All of us have this water retention problem, like we have a lot of salt in our food, your body retains more water. When you have, for women around the time of their cycles, they retain more water. When you have a lot of outside food, again with a lot of salt, lot of sodium, that's when again you retain a lot of water. So it depends on where your trigger points are and making sure that those are controlled. So if you feel like it's because you skip your tablets or supplements, then you have to make sure that you eat your tablets and supplements on time.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
70 to 80% pollution नाश हो सकता है. We bring a lot of pollution to our eating product. जो detergent आप घर में.
Is someone talking to me?
I am not sure. Hello. I think that was news in the background. Sorry. Any more questions? If not, then we'll call it today. Hello. No. Some of the last one for me, basically. I think most of the runners in this community here we are planning for the Ladakh run.
Yeah.
But because of the lockdown, they are not able to. But yes, it's in the pipeline for most of the runners in our community for next year, definitely. So what would be your advice for all of us, when we are running on a higher altitude like Ladakh?
I think to start with, you need to understand that how much ever you practice, in Maharashtra, it's going to be very, very different from what it's going to be like when you're running at a higher altitude, right? So again, what happens at a higher altitude is your breathing gets a bit difficult, especially when you're running. So again, that's when I would say have a lot of beetroot and nitrate-rich foods for you on a daily basis, for you to make sure that your oxygen supply is efficient to your muscles, right? And your breathing becomes okay. And another thing in a very cold setting is your water intake. You don't realize that let's say you're running in Ladakh versus you're running maybe back home, or even when you come down south to Chennai, you sweat a lot. So you know that, okay, I'm sweating a lot, I need more water. But in a cold setting, what happens is you don't realize you're losing water on you. So you need to make sure that you keep sipping on water every 20 minutes, or making sure that you stop at a hydration point to sort of like ensure that you get enough sort of water also. And another thing is when you're traveling, maybe ideally go there a day or two before to get acclimatized to sleeping in that weather. Don't go the day before the race, maybe 1 or 2 days before, just to get used to the cold, just for you to breathe in that air, see how it feels like, to get used to that environment, for your body to say, okay, I'm okay with this cold right now, you know, and then sort of start running. And the food there, you'll have to get used to the food there also. You can't take everything from here. You'll be staying at a hotel. You don't want to get food poisoning the night before. So it's better to try out the hotel food like a day or two before. Play it safe always, especially when you're eating out. Like stick to things like rice and rotis. Don't do like adventurous food tasting before. Do it after your race. Like if you want to try something local, you know, like whatever they have there. So ideally keep all of that to much later. Even your sightseeing and all, don't tire yourself out, you know, walking and like, you know, trekking and all of that like a day or two before the marathon. Always push all of that to, you know, some days if you're staying back, push it to after. So mostly it's around these things. I think enough food and like, and again, cold weather and appetite, you may not feel hungry as often either. So I think that's also a takeaway. But again, there's no hard and fast rule. Each of us respond differently. So it's more like mistakes I make during this race, I shouldn't be making in the next race. So sort of figure out what worked and what didn't work and apply it the next time.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? If not, then, you know, we will call it a day then. This was a very wonderful session, Sharmada. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Sharmada.
Thank you.
Like
Thanks a lot, Sharmada. It was lovely.
People can, you know, switch on their camera. Let's take a photo before we, you know. So photo is the motto, right?
Thank you, Sharmada.
That always is, and that is the reason, Mano, I joined in at the last moment so that my photo comes in.
That's very smart enough. Just a minute, let me take some 2-3 photos. I will share Sharmada's Instagram, you know, profile. I think it's on the PDF document we share, but I will share it so that people can follow her.
All right, thank you
Thank you very much, Sharmada.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.